Welcome to Talking Art, episode number 6. Today we're going to walk you through an exhibition of works by Carl Holty. The title of the exhibition is Legacy to American Art, and the title is important. A lot of people have walked in and asked, why don't I know Carl Holty? A roundabout way of answering that question is to say you probably know who Andy Warhol is. And why is that? It's probably because he was a genius marketer. He also created a very specific vision and personal vision in art through a certain lens of celebrity, and thus he became a celebrity. However, there's a handful of American artists who shaped the evolution of abstract American art in this country. And if I asked you very quickly who they are, you probably couldn't tell me. It's our job to share with you and educate you as to how this came to be and who they are. Carl Holty starts his journey in Europe. In 1930, he's in Paris, and he's with the Cubist artists and one of the few Americans to join the abstract creationist group, along with Alexander Calder. As we see down here at the end, we have this marvelous piece that almost looks like a mésange of figures where it's Cubist, but with softened edges that are very rhythmical. Carl Holty was, of course, influenced by artists such as Pablo Picasso. But more important is to note that he was intimately working with an artist like Albert Gleizes, and we see that in a piece like this here. Unlike the other works which had soft-edged elements of Cubism, he also experimented with this layered, hard-edged feel of Cubism, and this is a master drawing by him.
In Paris in 1933, Holty executed a series of Matisse-like fluid line drawings on the theme of a lady by the sea. In each drawing, 8 in all, Holty reduces the formal elements of the figure to an increasing degree, from a very recognizable form to one distilled to its essential lines.
Holty spends a number of years in Paris, and he continues to explore beyond Cubism. He actually moves into a very sophisticated form of abstraction that deals with surrealism and floating forms in space. Between 1930 and 35, we see Carl Holty moving from a type of cubist abstraction with the figure to a very non-objective and flattened out form of geometric abstraction. Holty continues to work with floating forms in pictorial space. This is 1945, and we see a very strong influence of Miro still in his work. This is called Interior, painted in 1941, and it's a culminating time period for Holty. He is in New York, and he's with his friend Piet Mondrian, who he had met in Europe. They're very close friends, and Mondrian convinces him to further explore non-objective abstraction. In 1951, it's a very interesting moment for Carl Holty. In general, abstraction in America has gone in many different directions. Carl Holty chooses to go back to the figure and even to compositions, but abstracting them. That's how he deals with the fact that he's not really moving into abstract expressionism. So sometimes cool stuff happens, and our discovering these Carl Holty collages was one of those moments. So this is the late 1950s, just coming towards 1960. Carl Holty experiments with collage and torn bits of paper and rough edges and then straight edges. And we believe that maybe this had a big influence on his best friend's career. His best friend was Romare Bearden, who went on to become one of the greatest collage artists of the late 20th century. So we believe that he actually saw these. He and Carl Holty had a lot of exchange, and he admired Holty and listened to Holty. So we think that Romare Bearden borrowed elements from these in his own work. A few important points about Carl Holty's career is that he was the president of the American Abstract Artists Group, and he also helped to found it. By the end of his career, like we see in this 1963 color field study, he arrived at a very monumental statement in his work. He started doing very large canvases off of this with this very sort of broad and sublime message that he explored through color field, just like Mark Rothko did. So very few Americans had the trajectory that Carl Holty did. And if we didn't have him, he wouldn't have been a teacher in New York City. He was one of the most intellectual and articulate artists of the 20th century.